Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's episode of Ask Sibs. I think I mentioned a couple of days ago that I've had noon in my calendar every weekday to do Ask Sibs. That's been the plan. And then, meetings overrun. Then I'm starving. And then, it's been somewhere between 12 and 2. But of all the 12 episodes I've now done of this new format, which seems to be going down really well and giving a lot of value on different topics. It's actually the first time I've gone live at 12. So good start there to this episode. Going to be talking today, as it says at the bottom, about how brands work with disabled influencers. Obviously, I think you all know that I co-founded Purple Goat, which is a social influencer marketing agency, and that we do a lot around influencer marketing and talk a lot about how brands need to be more inclusive to disabled people. But I don't think I've ever more specifically talked to how brands are working with disabled influencers. So I think the first thing to point out is there are different types of brands. We work with what I would sort of more call the disability brands. So they might be, manufacturing a product like a wheelchair or a hoist that is definitively made with a part of the disabled community in mind. Obviously, I've talked a few times a little bit about the segmenting of disabled people in the disability community. And so obviously a wheelchair would be for wheelchair users, which apparently there's about 1.2 million wheelchair users in the UK. If it's a product for deaf people, not blind people, obviously there's, I don't know all the stats right off the top of my head. I'm going to actually commit them to memory because that'd be very useful. But ultimately you get the point that even then, it's not like a product is for all disabled people. It's for a section of the community. So there's the disability where it's sort of business to consumer. There's also brands that are, shall we say, working on a mission of inclusion for disabled people. And they maybe have products or services that are for government or charities or particularly businesses, where it's sort of like an inclusion service. So their client or their customer is other businesses, not disabled people, but then maybe that business is doing something that positively impacts disabled people and inclusion. So all of that for me would come under the sort of disability brand. And then you've got mainstream brands, which would be banks, supermarkets, fashion, sport, etc., 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 etc. Because there's a lot of different industries, if you like, within the economy, and a lot of brands within all of those different industries. But essentially, they've got a product or service that hasn't been invented only for people with a disability, but ultimately it is used by disabled people. So, like, if I think I'm, watching Netflix or Amazon Prime Video, they've not made that just for someone in a wheelchair or just for disabled people, but I am one of their customers. I am in a wheelchair. And so there's very much about representation in marketing, the whole fact that there's 22% of population has a disability, yet 0.06% of adverts feature disability. And so if, to use our example, Netflix or Amazon Prime Video were to actually start to work with disabled people, I'm going to use the word influencer in a second, but could be models or like all the different kind of parts of advertising and marketing, but ultimately working where disabled people are more represented. So actors, models could fit in around the sort of TV. I suppose you get voice specialists that do radio adverts. So again, having that representation is important. But what we've then generally found, forget disability for a second, is that social media and influencer marketing is the best, most powerful way to do marketing in 2021. The money that you spend, whatever your budget, if it's small, medium or large, you know that you can measure everything and track everything through social media. And generally, because you're able to target the exact people you want to have sort of come across your marketing, then you're going to be getting a lot better value for your money. when you look at more traditional media spend like TV, radio, you probably are going to reach a bigger amount of people. So you'll get more impressions, more reach, more viewers, more listeners, whatever the medium is. But how many of them actually are the people that are going to buy your product is then not so known. You might be lucky if 10% of the people that saw or heard your advert are remotely interested. And even then, you're not going to get all 10% that are going to come and buy. You then get a lower percentage of those that are generally in the market for that product that may or may not want to buy your particular product or service, or work with your, buy from your particular brand. So there's two different points. There's the way that brands are inclusive and accessible and engaging with disabled consumers in general. And then there's the marketing part, which is, we know social influencer marketing is hands down the best way to do marketing in today's modern world. So when you put the two together, back to our question, how do brands work with disabled influencers? So whether it's a disability brand or it's a mainstream brand, you would obviously be looking at what your audience, what make up your audience is. So is it older, younger people? Is it, when you're talking about the disability market, is it all disabilities or particular type of disabilities? Is it geographical, like you only want to talk to people in London or East Anglia or all of England, or, basically breaking down the geography. And so, in the end, you create this profile of the audience that you want to create this marketing campaign for. And so the way that we found it really, really powerful to work with disabled influencers, there's quite a few different parts of it. One is that they can create really good content. So if someone is very on Instagram, been doing some cool content for a few years, got a really good following and a good engagement, then they can make good content. They can probably write in terms of copywriting, and they can take good photos, make good videos. That general kind of wheelhouse of content creation is very much part of an influencer's skill set. So there's a content creation bit, whether that's then used for the client on their own channels, whether it's used in all sorts of other ways, that depends on the campaign, but you've got your content, right? So then the other part is, as I said, if the influencer has been going a while and got a good sort of trust from their audience, and just generally a good profile, a bit of a thought leader, a bit of a world changer, a bit of a change maker, all that kind of stuff, then there's also value in that content going on their own channels for their audience to engage with it. So if I, for example, looking to sell, I'm in the wheelchair at the moment, is a Karma Evo Lectors. So if I was helping Karma to raise awareness of their brand or their wheelchair, then basically, you'd want to talk to wheelchair users. You might have a skew to a particular age group, maybe a younger age group potentially. But you do all the bits we said before. You'd find an influencer that is a wheelchair user that can create content all out of that importance of what a wheelchair means to them, all of that sort of stuff. But then, ultimately, if it goes on their own channels, then you're able to kind of, the people that have been following them then get to hear about Karma and about the product and about the wheelchair, about Evo Lectors for the first time. So ultimately, you're amplifying that message to a new audience. And then the other way that we can amplify the message is paid media. But again, you need to have the content in the first place to be able to do the paid media and the amplification. So there's lots of different ways this all merges. There's obviously blogs, SEO, there's all types of digital marketing. But what you're getting by working with the influencer is the knowledge of that community, the knowledge of the sort of product and the industry that you're talking to. They're just an expert basically in that segment of disability. Most of all, they can create good content and they can get you in front of a new audience. So I think, to answer the question, those last couple of comments are the most poignant. that it's content creation, amplification, and generally having that expert knowledge. But I think all the stuff we talked about before was very important in terms of the two types of disability inclusion and social media marketing as to where they converge. That's where influencers are bringing so much value. There's other ways we've been working with disabled influencers for brands around, helping to give consumer insights, because again, they're the expert, and also giving talks and lunch and learn and that kind of stuff for brands to help educate internally their employees and their other networks. So there's very much an education piece from sort of just getting disabled people in front of people that have never come across disability before. Because at the end of the day, I think a lot of the discrimination, whether it's knowing or unknowing, and a lot of the barriers that disabled people face is mostly solved by education. So I think influencers can bring that education piece, which is really big in the first instance for a brand's sort of inclusion journey, if you like, the first step. But then, very much in the marketing world, there's so much powerful stuff, as our sister agency, the GOAT agency, have been doing for 5 years now, about the power of influencers with general marketing 101 type stuff. So I hope that was some new interesting topics. As always, very happy to answer particular questions that arise to you, happy to go in deeper to some of the things I've mentioned today, and very happy to answer any other questions you've got around these sorts of topic areas. I see that Chris on Facebook has tagged a couple of people. By the way, Chris, I'm looking forward to chatting to you tomorrow and hearing about your new CEO role. And I hope the two people that you've tagged find this useful. And Sumeda on LinkedIn says, ASOS, including wheelchair basketball star Jordan, was amazing to launch its wheelchair-friendly jumpsuit. That's an exact perfect example. I think I used the wheelchair example in terms of a disability brand, and Sumeda has kindly added another example where ASOS is that general fashion, mainstream fashion brand. They've done that, the jumpsuit that was wheelchair user friendly, and they used Jordan, the wheelchair basketball player, as the influencer to create content, bring his own sort of profile within his community to show that he endorses it. And I think another way of looking at influencer marketing is it's word of mouth at scale. And so when you look at it like that we all tell our neighbors, tell our friends and family, oh, we've used this product or we've used this brand, we found it to be a positive experience, and then that gives other people more trust. Influencer marketing is that, but using almost the plumbing of the internet and the plumbing of social media. You're able to get that word of mouth, not just in a literal offline word of mouth conversation, but you can do it at massive scale. So yeah, that kind of joins all the different dots together. And thanks again, Sumeda, for your comment on that. All right, well, as I said, I'm glad I got this in earlier, got it in at midday as planned. I'm starving, so I'm going to go and get a bit of lunch now. I hope you're having a really good week, and I look forward to getting more questions in under the hashtag AskSibs to be able to address some of these similar questions. And as I said other days, business, entrepreneurship, social media marketing, disability and inclusion, on and on and on, accessible tourism, all that good stuff. I'm happy to answer your questions. And enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Have a good day, and I'll see you again tomorrow. Bye-bye for now.